Do you want an amazing marriage? Are you ready to take your marriage to the next level? Then stick around for Your Marriage Matters podcast with marriage coach Lynn. Let's put some fun and sizzle into your relationship.
Arguments, we all have them. Sometimes disagreements can bring us down and keep us down. Some people say, don't sweat the small stuff. But it is said that the little things can do damage to a marriage, especially if those so-called little things are left unsolved or unattended. A wall of resentment can build due to the little things. It's much harder to demolish a brick wall, so let's say to not build that wall in the first place and deal with conflict as it arises. Today, we're going to discover some secrets to dealing with conflict. Thank you for joining me here at the Your Marriage Matters podcast. This is part 3 in our communication series. I want to draw your attention to episode 9 of this podcast, Managing Conflict. On that episode, you will find slightly different information, but information that overlaps with this episode. Taken together, you'll have the tools and techniques you need to navigate through disagreements and conflict. Next week, I will give an overview of an excellent technique called nonviolent communication. Today, I'm going to outline a process in resolving conflict as designed by Dr. Judy Pearson. A copy of what I'm talking about can be found in the resources section of my website, marriagecoachlynn.com, so you don't have to take notes or even listen for every little detail. Seeing it written out can be helpful as opposed to verbally explaining guidelines. The following guidelines apply to close relationships between friends, family members, and couples who want to preserve the quality of their relationships. The purpose of discussing a conflict is not to make each other feel bad. The purpose is to reach agreement on a solution. This is what conflict resolution guidelines can help you with, reaching a solution and an agreement on that solution. Here are some general guidelines that may help. It's best if both parties to the conflict are aware of these guidelines and use them as ground rules for resolving conflicts. Therefore, it might be a great idea to go to the website and maybe print out a copy and take a look at it. So the first step in the process is bringing up the problem. It's really important to get started on the right foot. So number 1, you're going to choose a time when the other person is available to listen to you. Not hurried, not distracted, but the person needs to be available to listen to you. Step number 2 is to tell the other person that you need to talk about something that is troubling you. 3, talk about the problem as objectively as possible. Be specific about the other person's action that is troubling to you. The 4th step in the process of bringing up the problem is to use I statements to describe how you feel about the person's behavior. I'm upset about this. I'm having a hard time with this. I feel this way when this happens. You might also want to give the other person information about how their behavior is affecting you in some way or how you are interpreting that behavior. I have to say that a big problem in communication is the way we interpret. We have misunderstandings. What are we interpreting? The communication, the end result, what is being transmitted, what are you interpreting, how are you perceiving? Number 5, if you aren't sure of the other person's intentions, or if you aren't sure how to interpret the other person's behavior, admit it and ask questions for clarification. Here's what not to do. Do not use a critical, condescending, sarcastic, or accusing tone of voice. Do not accuse or blame. Do not resort to name-calling, judgmental, sarcastic, or derogatory language. Do not mind-read the other person. Avoid generalities such as you always or you never. Don't ask the why question. Why did you do that? Instead, ask what, where, when, who, and how questions. Avoid unfavorable comparisons. Don't jump to conclusions. Ask for information. Don't change the subject. Deal with one problem at a time. Don't pursue the discussion when the other person isn't up to it. Don't leave the room or refuse to discuss the matter. If your feelings are so overwhelming that you can't continue, postpone the discussion for another time and make an agreement with the other person as to when the discussion will resume. All right, so why don't we talk about when someone brings up a problem to you, what you want to do. You're going to want to listen and reflect. So when someone brings a problem up to you, listen and reflect. Number 1, be quiet while the other person is speaking. Listen to understand what he or she is saying. This is not the time to mentally formulate your defense. It's not the time to deflect or distract or to jump in or to interrupt. The second thing you want to do, you want to make eye contact and show interest. Pay attention to the other person. Put your electronic devices aside. Put your reading material aside or whatever you're watching or doing. Make eye contact and show interest. Number 3, summarize what the other person is saying and check to make sure you have understood accurately what is troubling the other person. Ask questions for clarification about anything you don't understand. 4, follow the what not to do guidelines that I mentioned above. Especially don't ask why questions. That really gets a lot of people. Why? Why did you do that? Why? Number 5, offer any reassurances or explanations that might ease the other's concerns. Number 6, offer I statements to describe your feelings and perceptions about the situation. Number 7, if you aren't sure about the other person's intentions, or if you aren't sure how to interpret the other person's concern, admit it and ask questions for clarification. Okay, some of this is sounding repetitive, but it's not. These are all important things that you should be doing if you want to communicate better. Let's talk about exploring solutions and reaching an agreement. And think about agreement. What is agreement? Is agreement getting your way, giving in? An agreement is a mutually satisfying solution. Okay, so you have to really, effective marriages involve people who budge, people who can totally change course. You don't have to stick to your agenda. You reaching an agreement. Number 1, the question on the table is, how can we solve this problem in a way that both of us are satisfied and that we preserve the quality of our relationship at the same time? 2, tell each other what you want the other to do and what you are willing to do to solve the problem. If the wants conflict, explore and negotiate possible solutions. Many couples will have arguments and they won't really get to the problem solving specific recommendations as to what you want your partner to do, what can be done. Otherwise, you end up talking in circles and you don't resolve your conflicts. Number 3, check out how the solutions meet the needs of each person involved. Bring up any difficulties with any solution. Continue to communicate in I statements about how you feel and what you think of each possible solution, right? You want to be happy about the solution you're going to reach. If you're happy about the solution, you're way more likely to implement it if you understand it and you troubleshoot any difficulties or minor little issues about it. Number 4, reach an agreement on the best solution. Get the agreement in writing if it will help you to remember it. So many people will post little notes around the house or their vision boards in their room, their goals, goal setting. It's great to write things down and to refer to it. 5. Discuss action items that are required to implement the solution. These action items could include who will do it, how to do it, when, where, or how often it will be accomplished. Number 6. Appreciate one another for reaching the agreement and acknowledge to one another the difficulties of resolving the conflict. And the next step, let's call it the final step of this process of negotiating and managing conflict, is to actually carry out the agreement. If one or both parties do not carry out the agreement, return to the whole process, starting with bringing up the problem, and start over again. And again, if you're not carrying out the agreement, is it possible that you didn't write it down, that you're not committed to it, that you don't see it, you're not thinking about it, you don't follow through with what you discussed? Words can be empty if they're not followed through and action is not taken. You're not problem solving if it's just, again, you're talking in circles. So you might have to start this process at the beginning. Well, I hope this helped you. I want to thank you for listening today. I know the last several minutes sounded like I was reading off a list. I was. You can find this list on marriagecoachlynn.com. Let me know if I can be of service to you for some one-on-one coaching. Your marriage is the most important relationship of your life, so be sure you are doing everything you can to make your marriage great.